In 2020, regulatory will play a very important role, and there is no doubt about that. It is very early to say or too prematurely to say that till what extent banks are prepared, but one thing is sure that majority of the banks are not prepared. Like according to the recent report by McKinsey, which published in 2019, although the report is very detailed and we will have a separate session on that report, but the conclusion of that report is that around 60% of the banks of the globe might not survive in this downturn. I have a little disregard with McKinsey because I believe that it is not 60%, rather it is more than 70%. According to me, in another 3 to 5 years, more than 70% of the banks across the globe will either closed or they would be consolidated. And it is happening. It is happening in Europe, it is happening in India. Example, Government of India wanted to merge the 10 public sector banks and wanted to create 4 legal entities. It means that standing today, if I say that I am having 30 public sector banks, then probably at the end of 2020 it would be less than 15 or 16. And God knows by end of 2021, for the sake of non-performing asset, it would be less than 10 also, because we don't know. In all these backdrop, the regulatory is changing very fast, and specifically the international regulatory. Example, when we talk about Australian regulator, which is APRA, it is changing very fast. APRA bringing lot of transparency into the system. When we talk about Singapore, Monetary Authority of Singapore is bringing lot of changes into the system. That is a different thing, that I am having interpretation issue with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, because the way they are bringing the changes and the context in which they are bringing the changes is wrong. But anyways, whatever is Hong Kong is happening, that is highly unfortunate, but we know that Hong Kong also making lot of changes in the regulatory domain. Whatever is happening in Hong Kong can be divided into 2 parts. One is the unrest, which is happening parallelly, and one is the regulatory. So in all these unrest, Hong Kong Monetary Authority is working 24/7. This is a good fact. But unfortunately, the media is not discussing that, and media focus is little bit disregard in that direction. Anyways, considering all these, 2021 would definitely be an important year for world economy. In fact, not 2021, in fact 2020 onwards would be very important year. Number one, in October 2021, Monetary Authority of Singapore 610, which is Risk Aggregation and Statistics Reporting, will get applicable. I can see that it would be a big failure, because the way it is drafted, it don't end up the desired result. But still, there are many people, those who call, this is, by the way, this notice is known as Risk Aggregation and Statistics Reporting. In 2021, SFTR, Securities Financing Transaction Regulation, MiFID second, Markets in Financial Instrument Directive second, and multiple such regulation, GDPR, General Data Prevention Regulation, and all amendments will come, including PRA 110, Prudential Regulation Authority 110. And how can we forget that August 2021, which is practically around 16-17 months from now, the LIBOR would be phased out. And action is happening on the LIBOR front, but I have a deep indemnification that this action is not consensus action. So example, Interbank is changing at their own pace, regulatory is changing at its own pace, ISDA is doing mistakes over mistakes, and the draft which ISDA is publishing, except few people, most of the people do not understand, and it is definitely not easy to find them, to be honest. The video literature on the LIBOR transition is completely missing. People like us are posting thoughts on YouTube, but not many are posting. You can check on the YouTube. But still LIBOR transition would happen. That is for sure. So October 2021 LIBOR transition would happen. We don't know if the Chinese virus impact will linger on in the whole 2020, whose prediction is very high. Then the LIBOR phase out might not happen. It may deferred by another 1 year, but there is no guarantee. In 2022, the fundamental review of the trading book is coming, and in 2023 the nuclear bomb Basel III revised, which people tell us Basel IV, would come. Alternatively, India, in all these, considering this is a backdrop, when you have fundamental review of the trading book, when you have SFTR, Securities Financing Transaction Regulation, when you have GDPR, General Data Prevention Regulation, when you have Basel III, when you have PRA 110, and all these LIBOR transitioning, India is a price taker, not a price maker. And by the way, with due respect and no offense to any country, India is never be a price maker in regulatory. You can let me know one regulatory which is stated by Reserve Bank of India which is valid across the globe. But I can tell you 20 regulatories which are stated by different central bank. They not only valid in their jurisdiction but valid in India also. Example, fundamental review of the trading book. JP Morgan Chase India, Citi India, Goldman India, HSBC India, Standard Chartered India, ANZ India, Deutsche India, Barclays India, UBS India. All the foreign banks, those who work in India, the fundamental review of the trading book will apply to them. That's for sure. So India is a price taker. India is not a price maker. But the books, the colleges, the universities, the professors, and more importantly, the political class, without quoting the name of any leader or a party, whatever, since 1947, always try and pretend that India is a price maker, not a price taker. But the hard reality is that in banking, financial and treasury market, India is a price taker. India is not a price maker, and it would continue to be. In all these backdrop, we got two stuff when it comes to LIBOR transition. Number one, Goldman with JP Morgan Chase tested SOFR swaption, which is wonderful. While JP Morgan Chase with the National Bank of Canada, they tested SOFR and CORA, basis swap, cross currency basis swap. In all these, when even derivatives are made, I don't know till what extent you're visiting the website which is Chicago Mercantile Exchange, but if you visit the website of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, you will get hell lot of information. But don't think that you would be able to make a sense out of that information, because you need to have a technical skill set. Like if you really wanted to test yourself, then open Chicago Mercantile Exchange website and see how much you understand. If you do not understand 1% of that, it means you stand nowhere. But if you understand 25% of that, it means you are on a right track. But if you understand more than 80% of that, it means nothing like it. No one can stop you in this whole globe except yourself. And by the way, if you understand 100% out of 100, it means it is only a matter of time you're going to be a very successful person in your life. It's only a matter of time. So derivatives are getting traded in Chicago Mercantile Exchange. In fact, I should thank you, CME, because CME was the first. CME is the first non-bank corporation or a CCP, central clearing counterparty, who came in the public domain and talked about these derivatives when they were under formulation. In all these backdrop, Reserve Bank of India thought, let's work it out. And what they thought, let me answer you this. With London interbank offered rate getting discontinued in 2021, about 350 trillion of linked loan and derivative segment are now to link to a new benchmark. I think Reserve Bank of India do not know that it is not 350 trillion. Till now, there is no unique consensus we have in the globe that the total volume of the derivatives which are linked with LIBOR. No one knows. According to Deutsche, it is 1700 trillion and more. According to few banks, it is 250 trillion. According to a common consensus, it is 350 trillion. But no bank today, which is 17th February 2020, can come and take a stamp paper and write that it is 350 trillion. In fact, in 2008 financial crisis, even at that point of time, it was difficult for Fed to ascertain that how much collateralized debt obligation is actually leveraged. This was the scene. So in 2009, when Federal Reserve was not been able to envisage that, not computed that how much CDO was leveraged, and I am talking about the LIBOR, where CDO is a small part. So it is definitely not 350 trillion that RBI need to understand. It is a disputed figure which no one knows in this globe. Even I do not know. I always quoted more than 1700 trillion, which in our parlance is more than 1000 trillion, because it is quoted by Doshi long ago. But till what extent this 1700 trillion is a valid number, I don't know. Because I do not have any authority to go anywhere, to do any R&D, to do any survey, to take the input from regulator. I don't have any authority. So I always use the number which are in the public domain. As simple as that. There is a near consensus that LIBOR would be replaced by SOFR. I think this article and the writer and the RBI need to understand that LIBOR is replaced by 9 rates, and different currencies have their different rate, like Australian dollar, Japanese yen, Swiss franc, Euro, GBP, Hong Kong dollar, Canadian dollar, all are having their separate rate. SOFR is 1. It is not all, it is 1. This is the article which is published in Indian newspaper. Now see this article. If a young kid is reading this newspaper, he feels that a writer understands what he is talking about. But the hard reality is that writer himself do not know what he is talking it about, and he is writing. And this is published in the business newspaper. I again repeat, there is a near consensus that LIBOR would be replaced by SOFR. Get lost. LIBOR would be replaced by 9 rates, which is known as fallback adjustments. And by the way, 9 is also not sure. The matter of the fact is that maybe by 2021 it would be 12. So example, Sing dollar. Currently there is no fallback rate of Sing dollar. But I don't know. Probably by 2020 end, Monetary Authority of Singapore will came with a fallback rate. But today I don't know. Today I don't know. So example, I would say Thailand baht. Maybe the Central Bank of Thailand will have a unique consensus with ISDA and they wanted to launch a fallback rate. I don't know. Today it is 9. Standing on 17th February 2020, practically around 2 a.m. in the morning, it is 9. But it would be 19, it would be 29, or it would be 59. At the end of 2021, basically September, October 2021, when LIBOR would be phased out, no one knows. Because standing today, there are 189 currencies we have in this globe. I am damn sure that many of you, those who are watching this video, in fact, do not know that the total currencies in the globe is 189. And out of 189, there are few non-deliverable currencies and rest are deliverable. So let me put a GK question, a general knowledge question to you. First part I answered that the total currencies in the globe is 189. 189. So the total nations in the globe is around 228 and 235 something. Different pages of Google give different codes. Total currencies is 189 because of Euro. Because Euro is a European Union, but now after London, what would happen? I don't know. Tell me, out of 189, how many are non-deliverable currencies? Think it about. Let's move further. There is a near consensus that LIBOR would be replaced by secured overnight financing rate for all the dollar loans. Very good. But other benchmark too are in the race. Besides, India has its own benchmarks and Indian Banking Association is working on the roadmap. By the way, do you ever visit to the website of the Indian Banking Association? You will get to know what is their roadmap. Senior bankers said lenders are working on 2 aspects regarding replacement of LIBOR. They are working on a strategy for the transition to the new benchmark, and this has implicated for the risk management, product development and information technology. Please. Even ISDA is not ready. ISDA Master Service Agreement 2005, ISDA Risk Disclosure Statement, ISDA Schedule to Annexure and ISDA CSS Credit Support Annex. None of them is ready. None of them is ready. How you are ready? A global regulatory body who manages the whole OTC over the counter cycle is not ready. How you are ready? How you can create your benchmark? If today I am Genpact India, I signed a contract with you and I am having the legal binding agreement, which is ISDA, International Swap and Derivative Association Master Service Agreement 2005 or maybe 2002 with you, then nowhere these fallback rates are mentioned, by the way. So if they are not ready, how can you be ready? Come on, author, try and learn new things. Until ISTA come up with the fallback adjustment, they come up with the basis point adjustment, they come up with the pricing adjustment, it cannot be ready. No Indian bank can be ready because India is a price taker, India is not a price maker. Yes, all these 9 currencies which I mentioned, they can be ready because they are already approved. They can be ready. But having said that, they have to wait for ISDA. So what happened? The transitioning period involved 2 steps. Number 1 is the domestic structure. Number 1 is the international structure. So take Australian dollar. When I take Australian dollar as an example, then Australian dollar, the domestic structure can be ready because ONIA, Australian Overnight Index Average, which is a fallback rate, is already approved. So domestic work can happen. While the international consensus can only possible once ISDA draft will come, which is known as pre-cessation clause. That pre-cessation clause is faulty. We also pointed to ISDA, we will soon have a video. So by the time pre-cessation clause is not sure, domestic work can happen. But in case of India, neither domestic nor international can happen. So Indian Banking Association having no role to play in that regards. Definitely no role to play. Let's move further. RBI on its part had asked Financial Benchmarks India to change its methodology on the benchmarks, FBIL having MIBOR and MIFOR, which is linked with LIBOR as financial benchmark. Come on yaar, matlab, I have no Hindi word which I explain here. How MIBOR is linked with LIBOR? How MIBOR, the Mumbai Interbank linked with LIBOR? India having 3 curves, which is MIBOR, Mumbai Interbank Offer Rate, one is OIS, Overnight Index Swap, and one is benchmark curve, also known as BMK. Max to max, you can take 4 curves. One is the MIBOR, Mumbai Interbank Offer Rate, one is your treasury curve of Indian rupee, one is the benchmark curve, which is known as BMK curve, and one is known as MIBOR, OIS, treasury curve, and benchmark curve. So 4 curves we have. Although the repo curve and all these all are separate, right? Come on, none of them linked to LIBOR. MIBOR is nowhere linked to LIBOR. Now see what he wrote. He said that FBIL, Financial Benchmarks India, has its own overnight index average rate, which is known as MIBOR, and Mumbai Interbank Forward Offer Rate MIFOR, which is linked to LIBOR as financial benchmarks. Come on yaar, it's a height of idiocy. If you do not know foreign exchange, don't come and write this in a newspaper. And by the way, people do not know that the INR BMK, INR benchmark curve and INR OIS are not liquid. That is also a fact. I am not moving to INR treasury curve, else people will feel disappointment once again on our YouTube channel. So out of 4 curves, 3 curves are illiquid. My mathematics is weak. You can calculate 3 divided by 4 is how much? According to my mathematics, it is 75%. So 75% of the curves are illiquid in India, and this gentleman is telling me that it is linked to LIBOR. Come on. And when it comes to MIFOR, which is Mumbai Interbank Offer Rate, by the way, MIFOR is an integral part to compute cross-currency swap. So MIFOR is not linked with LIBOR. MIFOR component, in MIFOR, LIBOR is one component. Once you calculate MIFOR, LIBOR is a part of it. So rupee premium and LIBOR is a part of it. That here I agree to an extent. But the final changes to these can only be made after the established world shift to a new benchmark, which is ISDA. I think the author do not know that ISDA, there is some organization ISDA which is working on the benchmark. Knowledge. There are several benchmarks depending on the country of origin and the country used, which are competing with LIBOR. Example SONIA, which is Standing Overnight Index Average. Example SARON, which is Swiss Average Overnight Rate. ESTR, which is European short-term rate. TONA, Tokyo Overnight Average, and there are 9, he mentioned only 4. In all this discussion, but he said that, however, with the world moving to a new benchmark, Indian banks and companies are awaiting clarity on how these contracted exposure will change. India external debt at the end of 2019 stands at $557 billion. Check it out. All those people, those who are saying that India FX reserve always is 478 or something like this figure, they agreed that on June 2019, Indian external debt is around $557 billion. That is why I always raise an issue of NIIP, Net International Investment Position, which is the difference between FX assets and FX liability. Even if I go with this number, which is 557, India holds around more than $200 billion of FX liability. But that's a completely different. To cut the long discussion short, India is nowhere prepared for LIBOR transitioning because India is only having one curve which fits in LIBOR, and that is MIFOR, Mumbai Interbank Forward Offer Rate. Sitting today, the methodology of MIFOR is the bracket or the sum product of the rupee premium and the LIBOR. But once LIBOR would be divided into 9 different parts, which is Saron, which is Tona, which is Honia, which is Onia, which is ESTR and all, then it would be difficult for India to agree and decide unanimously that how MIFOR to be computed. And they need the consensus of Reuters and Bloomberg to get this done. How it would happen, in what shape and size it would happen, we do not know. But it would happen in 2021. To cut the long discussion short, the people, those who are reading newspaper, they do not know that they are reading something which is fake. Just like in NDTV, Ravish Kumar always say that you are not watching the television. You are watching an instrument whose objective is to make you a terrorist. Similarly, you are not reading a newspaper. You are reading something which is completely fake. Even a single person in the whole globe cannot tell that MIBOR is linked with LIBOR. LIBOR is a foreign currency, rate, while MIBOR is a local currency rate. How MIBOR can link with LIBOR? But according to Indian media, anything can possible. We hereby conclude that, at least from Treasury Consulting side, that India is definitely not prepared for LIBOR transition. It took around 2.5 years for Chicago Mercantile Exchange to reach at that level when they are offering almost everything. Sonia, derivative contracts, Aron contracts, SOFR swaption and whatnot. There are a number of instruments which they offer. If India will start today and work 24 hours in a day, no Saturday and Sunday, then I doubt that before October 2021 they would be able to participate in LIBOR transition. But in all these phases, you have Saturdays, Sundays, Chutti, Holi, Diwali and everything. So I really doubt. With this, we thank you very much. And once again, our belief that India is a country who really not worried about that. And more importantly, why India, even Singapore. Singapore is not yet participated in the LIBOR transition. On the name of their overnight rate, they came up with fresh and fancy word SOAR, Singapore Overnight Average. But that is not the right way to compute. We'll definitely have a separate video in that regards. In the Southeast Asia, except Australia and Hong Kong, no one is participating. And that is a quite surprising fact. By the one side, media continue to paste the negative image of Hong Kong, and I'm not saying that this image is completely incorrect. Hong Kong is also responsible to an extent to that image. But in the whole Southeast Asia, there are only 2 countries, if I exclude Japan, which is known as AXJ in our parlance. If I speak technically, in the context of AXJ, only 2 countries participated in LIBOR transition, that Australia and Hong Kong. And that's hats off to both of them. If I include Japan, then it is Japan also. Singapore not participated, Dubai not participated, Philippines not participated, India not participated, and no countries participated. Let's see how it is shape up. You know my mobile number, which is +91 9899242978. You know my alternate mobile number, +91 9818485155. You know our fixed income platform, www.fixedincome.global. We will not participate in LIBOR transition as a sleeping body. We will not participate as an audience. We participate as an actor, that's my assurance. Have a great time. Talk soon.